AudioLab, devlog number 5. Looking back at what I had last time, it is hard for me to believe that it's only been 3 weeks because this program has been through an incredible amount of change in that time. This screen might not look a whole lot different, but I have basically an entirely new UI here on the composition screen. Let's see, where do I want to start with this? So one of my main goals since last time was I wish I could resize this. I mean, I can. It doesn't actually resize anything. Okay, that's going to mess up. It's made to run at a very specific resolution, and nothing actually scales. I should totally do something about that, because whenever I record this, I just have all this dead space out here. All right, well, I've given myself some work already. Anyway, so one of my goals since last time was to use this for some actual real composition work, which kind of lit a fire under me to fix up all of the obstacles that were in the way of doing that. So before I had this little view where I could input some stuff, and it didn't work very well. I tried to use it and could barely make it do anything. So I needed to make this functional. I needed a way to change my, to put together, this is one pattern. I needed a way to composite patterns together in a full sequence to make an entire song. And I needed a way to change the instruments used for what goes in here. And I have all that now. So let's just jump straight to a composition that I made that I'm pretty happy with. This was about an hour of work in this tool, and I learned a whole lot of things from it. I'll go over in detail how this is put together, but let's just play it. Yep, still pretty happy with how that came out. So this whole project has kind of been a dream project of mine for a long time. I'm so happy to finally be putting it together, and I feel like I'm able to be more productive in this than any other music composition tool that I've ever actually used. And I guess that's just because I'm pretty much putting this together in with what I understood from those that worked for me and inventing new things that works better for my workflow. Anyway, so yeah, this little composition here came together with surprisingly little work and was a huge amount of fun to make. I wish I had recorded the process. I did not. I'm hoping to record future use of this tool so I can show you what it looks like to actually put together all this. Let's go through what's here. So in order to make this composition, I just kind of started with doodling with a bass line. That started out with, actually, the very start was choosing an instrument for the bass. I tried a few different things and ended up with, okay, right, I can actually do this. That's the bass instrument. I can click Edit here, and it takes me over to this screen where I'm actually editing the parameters of this. So this is a near sawtooth wave. I added oh, check it out. It didn't update the UI here. Okay, found a bug. That's actually probably real easy to fix. Let me try and make a fix to that right now. I bet I can, because I think I know exactly what it is that I need to do. Let's see here, because this will work better if this actually works fully. Okay, so I would activate, assign instrument. No, wait, this is the wrong screen. I need general synth screen. That's the name for the one we were looking at there. Activate, dispose, update audio, update controls. So this does not, update controls doesn't. Aha, I see the problem. Okay, So all I need to do here is, okay, this will be a slightly less trivial than I was hoping, but I can do it. I probably actually have some code I can just copy paste from this. If I load a file, it has to do these things. Okay, this isn't quite an easy copy paste job, but it's pretty close. So what I want to do is basically everything in the UI is updating except for the selection of these pop-up menus, and consequently it's not showing me the actual controls for the specific wave type I have selected. There's a slider for the incline of the sawtooth wave here, and I want to see that. So these variables were not getting updated when I activate in instrument editing mode here, basically. And I have a function that's going to give me the correct enumeration values for those. It's a little more cumbersome than I'd like, but all I have to do is general synth configuration, get amplitude type with my amplitude envelope. Okay, so get amplitude type. So sampler parameters, amplitude envelope. And then similarly for the other two. Yeah, so this was just a matter of not updating my 3 instance variables that determine which selection is going to be made in that pop-up menu. Well, the 3 pop-up menus being this one, and this one. And then based on the selection of those, it shows different controls for the... I can actually close this. I'll reload from where I am and not lose any progress. All right, so amplitude envelope, frequency curve, and wave sampler. All right, make. Yeah, so by my the time tracking that I do for the amount of work that I do on this project, I've put in just 23 hours of work since last time I recorded one of these. But that's, every moment of that is extremely focused. I have a process where when I'm actually putting time in a project, I am sitting there typing code, 100% focused on what I'm doing, and not going to get distracted by anything or, you know. So those are 23 very productive hours. Okay, there we go. I fixed it. All right, so this is a sawtooth wave. So when I can actually demonstrate this. So here, I can just play this pattern in isolation, or click on these to hear individual notes. So that's the bass pattern that's repeating several times here. Right, yeah, so anyway, starting with the instruments, there's a lot to go over here. But anyway, so when I had this as a pure sawtooth wave, it sounded almost right. But it was kind of like weirdly hollow. So like, listen to this. It sounds the same on these speakers I'm using right now. Wait, why does that sound the same? It's not the same. That's different. Okay, well, anyway, it's just kind of smoothed over a little bit. Anyway, yeah, so started with a sawtooth wave. Added this little thing so that I can change the incline of it. You know, there's a triangle wave. It's the same on both ends, just like the pulse wave duty. So yeah, this is basically just equivalent of pulse wave duty cycle. So anyway, if I don't want to commit that edit, I can just go back to the screen with a different keyboard shortcut. And yeah, that has the good one. So anyway, yeah, so I chose an instrument for the bass, set down a little pattern, and then I found that like my process of composition feels more like discovery than straight up creation, because I put down like 3 notes here and figured out, okay, from those 3 notes, what needs to come next? And I repeated that until I had a full measure of this. And then based on that, I figured out that I wanted that to repeat twice. Right, yeah, so I have this where I can drag that and decide how many times this pattern is going to repeat in the sequencer. Right, yeah, sorry, I should explain what this is first. So this right here is pattern 0. Pattern 0 is that bass line, one measure at 130 BPM of those notes. Then pattern 1, yeah, okay, that is selecting correctly. So with the bass instrument, this is still kind of a big mess. There's more information here. It's not all correct. It's not all updating at the same time. So, you know, don't worry too much about what you see here. It kind of works. It's getting there. Pattern 1 is a different thing. This is just the drums. Drum, by the way, is a sine wave that pitches down sharply. And that's how a bass drum is made. In here I also have sort of a little hi-hat kind of thing, which is just a noise sampler at that frequency. And that's all there is to it with this envelope. Oh boy, so many things to talk about. Sorry, trying to stick to one thing. I'll get to the rest of it. It's hard to focus here because there's like a lot of stuff all at once. This is why I should have recorded this process. Anyway, yeah, so bass line. First drum pattern. So both of those just sort of repeat that many times. This one comes in 2 measures later at measure 3. This is a pretty dim gray color. There's 1, 2, 3 there in case it doesn't show up in the video. I should brighten those up a little bit because they're mostly invisible here. So yeah, I decide how many times it repeats, and these lines indicate a repetition point because both of these are just 1 measure long. Then 2 more measures later, I wanted 1 more instrument, so I'm just using my main piano sample, same as what I had shown elsewhere. It's this sine plus overtones with a little bit of distortion on it. Sounds like that. Plays at a different frequency here just because that's what I've... that's controlled by note parameters, and there are no note parameters going on here. This is just editing the raw synthesizer data. Anyway, yeah, so I just put down a little melody with the piano instrument. That repeats once, so it plays twice, and then there's a different one. This one's actually two measures long, so you can see there's no thin line there because there's no repetition. I can make it repeat, but it doesn't do that. And yeah, from there, just kind of kept on going and figuring out what I needed to add. So I went through a couple of patterns with that. It does this again twice. And then a slightly different thing with sort of a lead out on it. Then piano instrument drops out. I'm calling it a piano. It's not really what it is, but the semi-piano-like instrument. Drums come back plus the other noise sample. So instead of this, there's one more thing in there. So that repeats for a while, then this comes back with a different pattern, and you can see how the rest of that goes together. The bass actually changes here and does this sort of breakdown thing. And this is, right, the drums slow down too. Right. Anyway, yeah, makes this nice slow part of the song in the middle. Then goes back to the same lively bass line and drums and stuff and puts in a conclusion, basically. This is the same as 0, just with one note fewer, because this ends, it didn't feel good to end on that note. So, and this one is slightly longer, has a duration of 0.2 instead of a duration of 0. Duration's not the actual duration, but it's like the extra hold length. Anyway, yeah, so that was how that was put together. Again, I'm totally going to record me actually making a composition with this at some point when the UI is a little bit farther along. The UI that I used for putting this together was much worse than what I have here, and that process showed me what I needed to do to make this screen more usable. So next time I write a song, it'll be basically another iteration of that. So like I will have polished this up to the what I need to know about, like for one thing, I had added this repeat count thing after I made that whole thing, because originally this was put together like this, just by putting, I have drag and drop here by the way, it works pretty well. just by actually adding extra instances of this in every place where they needed to go. And that was a pain when I just actually want to use the same pattern and repeat it a bunch of times. So I added a way to do that, and that's just easier to work with. Anyway, yeah, so I think that goes through what that process was like. As far as note input here, this is one of the least usable parts of this program right now. I have the keys on my keyboard mapped to the keys on a piano keyboard, basically. I'm going to make a new pattern here, and I need to add a measure to it. So like I press the A key, and I press the A key. That didn't have focus, that's why I didn't do it. Okay, right, so I'm going to press 3 to select octave 3, then press the A key, then it's going to input an extra one because that's what's already there. Okay, and press delete, press A, okay. Then I'm going to press D because that's 2 keys to the right on a QWERTY keyboard from the A. Then I'll press G, A, what's the next one? A4? Right, so press 4 to select octave 4. You can't actually see that happening, it just sort of happens. Oops. Right, yeah, so I reproduced the first half of that measure. Anyway, yeah, so this is probably the part that needs the most work by far. I have this thing in progress here where I can, based on the selection here, I have a list of the notes that are there. And at some point, I'm going to make it so I can edit their properties like pressure and duration. Let's see, what does pressure do? So that's at pressure 0. What about pressure 1? Assign to selection. It does nothing? No, wait. Pressure 1, assign to selection. Oh, geez. Okay. So it makes that like super loud. Let's try pressure less than 1. I think what that does is determine the peak amplitude on the ADSR envelope. Basically just makes the... whoa. Wait, that... Is that how that normally is? Hold on, I'm going to restart my program. Why did that sound weird? Yeah, okay, that's just how it is. So yeah, like higher pressure, I think just changes the ratio of this so that... Yeah, so that would be pressure 1. Pressure 0 might just be this at the sustain level? No, it has a little bit of attack, doesn't it? It totally does. Okay, yeah, so I think pressure just interpolates from 0 here to 1 here and changes just this parameter. I'm forgetting what I've done in my own work, but that's fine. It's a work in progress, rapidly changing. Anyway, yeah, so all that to say, I have a semi-usable sequencer UI put together. I managed to use it to put this composition together that I'm super happy with. It's just over a minute long. It's a good demo track. Doesn't survive a whole lot of repetitions, but like on first listen, I think it's extremely effective. Anyway, yeah, so that has shown me what I need to know to put together a better UI for further compositions, for more actual real work that's going on here. So yeah, instruments. So there's 2 different types of instruments. There's either piano-like or drum-like. I might have more types in there. But a piano-like instrument, yeah, I can create new ones. I can change their parameters and stuff. Piano-like instrument basically has one set of synthesizer parameters that determine what the note sounds like at a given pressure and duration and note value. And then it changes some of those parameters, like say frequency for note value, and ADSR envelope parameters for pressure, and different parameters like the sustain length for hold duration. Wave shape always stays the same. So that's how those map together. Then there's the drum-like instrument, which just has, for each piano key on the keyboard, this only has 2 assigned. So A4 and B4 play those 2 sounds respectively. And if I edit this, This is just the exact thing that will play in here every time there's an A4 using that instrument. Excuse me, that was not... Okay, I got a little conflict here. When I click outside this, it takes the focus off of that, therefore my key press won't go through to assign the instrument. Okay, I broke this at some point. But then when I click here, it reassigns the value of this menu to what's already in here. Oops. So I can't actually input drums right now. All right, whatever. I guess I can in an empty pattern, because when I click here, it doesn't reassign anything because there's nothing there. All right, there we go. Drums. That's A. That's B. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So lots of work to do here. This part of the UI is the least finished, which is weird because it's the oldest. Anyway. So right, I'm just going to delete that. I don't need you anymore. Yeah. So that's how this is for composition. What else did I do? So I also had some time to play around with this part of the UI. I added this new amplitude envelope. Whoa, that's confusing. Your length is way too long. No, your duration is way too... Okay, so it's a little clearer to see what's going on here, kinda. Let's put this at flat. Yeah, okay, so it's a lot clearer what's... what this is doing. Anyway, yeah, so pulse, amplitude, wave, if I want like full volume, no volume, full volume, no volume, repeating. I did this because there were certain sounds I wanted to reproduce and they used this pattern. So let's see if you've happened to recognize this sound. Or let's say this sound. Anyway, yeah, so listening to the Fountain and Zap Recharger samples from Explorer, I just thought it'd be fun to try and reproduce those. They were pretty simple sounds to put together. These are not perfect reproductions, in particular like the Zap Recharger. So if you watched my Explorer LP at all, you would have heard this sound a lot. The way that actually plays is it's slower here. Like this takes longer than this. It's like a number of up-down cycles per pulse here, and I just didn't have a good way to reproduce that. But this is a good approximation. It's a square wave, which is mostly the right shape, with pulse, amplitude, and frequency stair-stepping up, down a little bit, up, down a little bit, up, down a little bit. So yeah, that was just fun to put together. I made a discovery while I was doing that, though, which was kind of fun. So for the Fountain one in particular, I was getting this weird artifact. I'm going to put this on flat amplitude. This might be loud. Yeah, it's pretty loud. Let's turn it down a little bit. I can hear still just a little bit of artifacting there. So I discovered that anti-aliasing is actually a concept that totally applies to both square and pulse and sawtooth waves. If I turn off anti-aliasing here, that little wee kind of interference that happens is just because of the frequency curve here. Like if I put this, okay, 1.360. If I make this flat, what's the hotkey for that? None of the ones I'm pressing. Yeah, okay, so with a small change, it's pretty obvious. Anyway, so the reason for that is at a high frequency, because of the I wish I could zoom in on this waveform and show it, but when the frequency gets high, there's like a single-digit number of samples in each part of the duty cycle, where like you'll end up with literally aliasing. Like for example, you get a 4, a 3, a 3, a 4, a 3, a 3, and it just has this weird interference effect. Where it's apparently sounds like that, just because of the sort of harmonics of differently sized duty cycles at high or like sliding frequency. It just makes it real obvious. So this checkbox, I wish I could see what's going on here. You can kind of see, basically does a thing where in the transition from up to down or from down to up, it can actually insert a sample somewhere in the middle that, based on how long the actual duty cycle was supposed to be, just does a little interpolation in there. Anyway, so yeah, that was a fun little discovery. Just came out naturally from the math. I tried to do something. I saw that my thing was inadequate, and I figured out how to fix it. And now I know about anti-aliasing for that. Yeah, same applies to Sawtooth. So yeah, without anti-aliasing, you get that weird interference. And with anti-aliasing, it doesn't do it. This currently only works for inclines of 1 exactly. I didn't figure out the math for that, so that doesn't sound great. But like if it's a triangle wave, there's no interference at all. Well, almost none. I heard a tiny bit at the end. Or like a sine wave doesn't do this, just because of the math used to generate it. Because it always gets a sample that's perfectly, Anyway, yeah, so discovering anti-aliasing was an interesting little journey for me. Anyway, so next steps for me here. So I think I could do more with this. Like, I'm happy with this composition as it is, but that sound of the instrument samples that was used there is about all that I feel like this, oops, that was the SFXer screen, that's fine, whatever. About all I feel like this can do with its current capabilities. The thing I need most here is some kind of, do I have any other interesting samples in here? These are all just like, yeah, no, nothing else really going on in here. Oh, it beeped because I pressed cancel. I know why that is. Okay, I can fix that. That beep shouldn't have happened. I also have these, so there are no longer... Oh, there are still buttons for these. I can delete those buttons because I just have these in my samples directory. This is the old... this thing. And the other one. I don't really like these compositions anymore. I've listened to them enough times that I'm not happy with them at this point. There's a certain longevity to each composition I'm finding. This one has more than those two. You can recognize from the first few notes. Yeah, so... was able to do that with the capabilities of making instruments that I have here. But I need something... I need to do some more research into, like, reproducing different... I think real instrument sounds are a good starting point. I'm doing something that's supposed to sound kind of like a piano, something that's supposed to sound like a bass drum, and something that's supposed to sound like a, I guess, hi-hat or, something like that. And I mean, I can just do my own thing with just random sounds made here, but I don't know, like, instruments sound the way they do for a reason. They're familiar, pleasing sounds that I think I'd like to have access to for these compositions. I'll put in weird, totally original sounds here, of course, but just having, like, something to latch onto, some familiar basis of, like, sounds that I would expect to hear in a composition will just make my job a little easier rather than creating something from absolutely nothing. Yeah, so, like, I understand only enough to make a kind of vaguely piano-like noise, a bass drum, hi-hat sort of thing, and this is just a made-up sound. This isn't supposed to sound like any instrument in particular. Right, I have to click the edit button. It's just a saw wave with a little bit of incline adjustment on it. So yeah, and I think the most important thing I need to add here to increase my capabilities is layering. Layering and sequencing at the level of these samples. So for example, if I were to think of, like, this is not exactly sequencing, but I'm thinking, like, if I take this stair-step thing, I could think of this as... you're so loud. Why do you have to be so loud? I could think of this as, like, 3 sections with flat amplitude, at one frequency, another frequency, and a third frequency here, with the same wave throughout all of them. And, like... boy, can I demonstrate this? I was going to open up BFXer because it kind of has a facility for this. Oh geez, I'm doing it. All right, I'm extremely unprepared for this. But let's say I would click this button. It makes an unpleasant noise. I'd click like this button, and then I would go to Mixer and say like, how do I even do this? Okay, here we go. Power up, hit hurt. Yeah, okay, so like this, the Mixer in BFXer lets me put things together and do some sequencing on them. So yeah, you can clearly see what's happening here. I want something that works kind of like this for my UI here, but better. But yeah, just being able to layer on. Yeah, so when I say layering, what I actually mean by that is not just, yeah, this is all sequencing, is not just like putting two things together and adding the waveforms. I want to add waveforms at a different level, so I could have like a sine wave at this frequency and basically do what, like for example, this overtones thing is doing. So like here, if I just have, oh, overtone count of 1 means 2. Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, so this is the resulting shape from adding two sine waves onto each other. I want to be able to do this arbitrarily and basically like construct one sine wave at one frequency, another one at double the frequency if I wanted, and lay them on top of each other and then have a new wave shape and be able to use that as a parameter here as input to the rest of this. And same thing for amplitude and frequency. And at the same time also be able to do this kind of thing. So that's what I need most here, and that's going to let me make much more widely varied instrument samples here, I think, and also give me all the capabilities that I need to just completely replace SFXer and BFXer for making any sound effects that I want to make, I think. Because this is dual purpose. This is both for making instrument samples for my sequencer and for actually making sound effects just to use as non-melodic sound effects. So it's supposed to be able to do both, and it's only kind of good at one of those now. So yeah, that's the near future of this thing, I think. So yeah, once I have like some layering and sequencing for the synthesizer, I will plan to record myself using that to go from nothing here to a full composition and show that entire process, because I think that's going to be a huge amount of fun. And I'm kind of thinking this is a tool that I could totally release to the public. I'm making the UI right now just to make sense to me, but I'm also kind of polishing it up a little bit more than just that. I have a bunch of hotkeys that are not like documented in any way here, and things you just have to know to do. Like editing instruments is super unintuitive. So here's what I have to do to add a new instrument. I'd click Add Instrument. It gives me new instrument here, and this is a rename field. Hi. The name of the instrument is Hi now. Piano-like, drum-like, choose one of those. What does that even mean? And to clipboard, from clipboard. There was a time, a long time, right up until actually literally this morning, when the only way to interchange data between these two screens was to put together something here, put it on the clipboard, and go here and click From Clipboard. So now I have that awful sound as a usable instrument. This is going to sound bad. So yeah, sure, it works. It doesn't sound as bad as I thought. Anyway, and then like I can load and save files here, like just load something actually good here. Sure. I can put it back onto the clipboard again if I want to take it over to this screen and mess with it. Anyway, but yeah, just today I added this edit button, which automatically takes the data from that instrument and loads it into here, then edit done to put it back the other way. So that's a much better workflow. It doesn't have to involve clipboard or files or anything. Anyway, yeah, so that's where I am. Gonna keep working on this in, I don't know, like, based on the rate of progress here, I could plausibly have this in a releasable state to the public in like 2 more of these 3-week units that I do. It's coming along pretty quickly, and it's already semi-usable, for me at least. And it's very rapidly getting better. So yeah, that's my hope. I want to release this both in binary and source form so you can build it yourself. It'd be neat if I could do a web version of this. I'm aware of Emscripten. I've never used it, but I would like to try building this for that to WebAssembly and see if I can just like stick this in a browser window so you can just like go there and play with it without having to download an executable. That'd be neat. No promises, but I will at least investigate it and see if it is viable for my workflow here, because I think that'd be cool. And I think this would be a valuable tool to have available. You know, one more way of making sound effects and music from math and a little bit of effort out in the world would be a good thing. All right, cool. So I'll see you next time with whatever I've gotten done with this.